gotten to hug yet, but I'm glad you all came. It's important to us that you're here to help us remember. To start our program, Ed Voorhees is going to sing the national anthem for us. Charlie Miller will do the Pledge of Allegiance, and Chaplain Russell will do our invocation. But before all that occurs, I'd like you to stand because the SOCF Honor Guard will present our colors.
Honor Guard, attend, advance the color.
March. On.
Present, arm.
Present. On. March on. March. Right. Face. Forward. March. Detail. March. Take the collar.
Present, arm.
By the dawn's early light, what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streamed, and rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arm.
Detail. Order. On. Forward. March. March on. Right. Left. Face. Forward. March.
Hooray, rest.
Detail. Halt. Left. Face.
Order. On.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you today for the opportunity to gather in your name. We acknowledge you, Lord, as our one true living God, the Alpha and the Omega. Out of hearts of gratitude and thanksgiving, we say thank you for guiding us, walking with us through these difficult times that we have faced. We ask, Lord, for your continuous blessing and protection for the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. Bless and protect our employees from director to the newest hire. Bless and protect our families, communities, and prisons across the state. Help us, Lord, seek your truth, your wisdom, and understanding. Be humble, obedient, and servants to you. Help us honor and glorify your name, to give as we so freely receive. And help us walk by faith in you, your Son, Jesus Christ, and be guided by the Holy Spirit. Jesus said to pray in this way. Pray with me, please, the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Please be seated. For those of you who don't know, I was actually not an employee of the department when the riot happened. In fact, I'm the first director since the riot that was not an employee of the department during the riot. I was, in fact, in the first pre-service class that took place after the riot. And what that means is that the riot has been a theme in the background of my entire correctional career. And it helped inform and shape me as a correctional leader. There were things that I know about when the monument was put up originally. I think I have the names of some of the people who participated in that. Ty Woe, for those of you who know him, our very own assistant director, shoveled the sand himself. Okay, that's what kind of is going on here. Incarcerated adult help. The Mansfield teacher came to teach people how to do the masonry. Mr. Canetta designed the original monument with the staff. And, you know, when I look at it, I think about the people that we know, like our own assistant director, Alan Oyer, the maintenance fellow at PCI. These are the people that erected this monument. And it was done as a team across institutions, and it was done in conjunction also with the community and our incarcerated adults. And maybe a little known story is when they were putting it up, they actually cracked the original spire. That was quite an oh my goodness moment, right? And that original spire stood for years, so we thought, well, golly, I guess it's not going to break. And then lightning struck it, and it was rubble on the ground. And I have to admit, I was looking at it going, well, it's not so bad with just the bottom part. When Warden Erdis called me and said, we got to get that put back up. Like, he was like, this is unacceptable. And started us off on another path. And we called in Mr. Canetto because this is his piece of art. And we designed it with people from all over the department, including a team from SOCF. And I think the final product is extremely beautiful. And we are here on a rainy, horrible day. But you can still see the glittering colors. And when you drive by here, it's impossible not to look on a dreary day, let alone on a beautiful day. And what that means is the riot, there's like a before and after the riot, right? There's how we did things before. There's the way central office and the facilities interacted. There's the way we interacted with the incarcerated people. And that shifted after the riot, and we were better for it. I'd like to say that this monument now even more represents GRC because this monument is better after the lightning. It's a place, this park, where we memorialize a lot of different things that have happened to our department over time, not the least of which is COVID. We planted a Buckeye Grove for every single person who died during COVID. It's right on the other side of the flags here. The trees here were dying. We're replanting them. We want this area to be where we memorialize the things that happen in our department so we do not forget, so we contemplate them, so we use them in our decision making, and we want this to remain a vital part. So I appreciate all the work that everyone's done to get this new monument here. We did not have to shovel this time, although it would have been nice to see it. I feel like when the riot happened, I was not working job. It wasn't like I was looking for a job. I changed jobs. And I decided, you know what? I'm not a quitter, and I'm not weak. And I can join these people. Because the people of the Department of Corrections look like a team and strong. And they definitely look like professionals. And the way that people comported themselves during that time period led me, as a person who wasn't even part of the department, to still want to become a part of the department. And that hasn't changed. I definitely believe that we can still learn from this. And so when we have this monument to look at, I know I do. I know I think about how we treat the incarcerated people and how they need a way to complain about things that's effective. I think about how central office needs to listen and incorporate the field in everything we do. We're better for all of that. And if you really want to look at the department, many of the things we do now that we take for granted were actually brought to the department as a result of improving ourselves after the riot. You can see it threaded through all of our policies. So now we have people that were not even born when the riot happened that are now coming to work for us. This memorial right here and this ceremony refreshes it for them and puts it back in their mind, or in their mind to begin with. This is what we're about here. We don't ever want to see anything like this happen again. We don't ever want another Mr. Blandingham. Never. So I'm happy that we're doing this, and all the people that were involved have come back here to speak to us, because it's important that we hear, that we learn, and that we listen. I'd now like to introduce Art Tate, who was the warden at the time of the riot, and let's give him a few minutes to talk about things from that perspective. Art?
Good morning. Believe it or not, I'm going to try to be brief. The first thing I would like to do at this rededication ceremony is recognize a few people. Certainly, Director Annette Chambers-Smith. I want to recognize my old boss, Reggie Wilkinson. I know there's several former wardens, friends of mine, Steve Huffman, former deputy director and warden at Lucasville, as well as Tony Brigano, warden from the department. I know there's some other wardens here from around the system. I know several of you have brought your officers of the year, and I'm really delighted to see that. I think it's also important for me to acknowledge the SOCF staff that may be here at this ceremony who were at Lucasville during the riot. I know there's a few of you. Would you please, Charlie? I know, stand up. Anybody else that was here? Dave? Several. Larry? Okay, several of you. These gentlemen, I don't think there were any ladies, but the gentlemen are all here that actually worked. It seems hard to believe, but it was a little over 28 years ago since the event. So I want to certainly recognize you. Mark Hooks. Where's Mark? Mark, I want to recognize you and your staff for all the hard work that I'm sure you put forth to put this thing together this morning. I think it really, despite the weather, this is a wonderful setting, and it's going to be just an outstanding morning. Anybody else everybody else who's in attendance today, I want to thank you for coming. Joe Ellen, there's Joe Ellen. Joe Ellen, special thanks to you for all of your help in helping the old man put a few words together. I know she knows I never write speeches, and I didn't write this one, but I did jot a few notes down. And I also want to thank the Lucasville Honor Guard. These folks are just fantastic, and they have done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of ceremonies. I want to thank the guys certainly for getting up really early and coming up this morning and being a part of the ceremony. As I said, I'm gonna try to be brief in my remarks. Today is really not about me. We want to talk about the why we're here. I will say that it's probably appropriate that I talk to you about just briefly about my Lucasville journey, which began late in September of 1990. I got the phone call on I forget what day of week it was, but I got the phone call from headquarters that I needed to foot it up there from Chillicothe. I was a warden at Chillicothe, and no mention given as to why, but just show up. So that's always not good. So God rest his soul, George Wilson was our director then. Some of you older folks remember George. And I showed up at the office and went in, and I mean, like 15 minutes later, I was told that I was going to be the new warden at Lucasville. And go back and had 2 weeks to let the staff know at Chillicothe and to start down at Lucasville on October 1st. And so I went back and did just that, packed all my belongings, and the one thing I did ask the director before I left was, he asked me, he said, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Can I take a couple of folks with me?" And he said, "No." He said, "You're going to go down there and take care of things." So I said, "Okay." My journey began on October 1st. I showed up at Lucasville October 1st of 1990, and it ended on December 12th, 1993. You know, I could speak, and I have for hours about all the intricacies that went on during the riot, and I'm not going to do that. Most of you are aware, if you understand the history of the department, that it was an 11-day event. It was 11 days of hell for those of us who were there. But I will say this, that we persevered as best we could under some just terrible circumstances day to day. We had great support from headquarters, but when you're in the trenches, there was just an awful lot going on. And certainly the worst thing that happened for me and everybody else was on day 4 when Bob Landingham was murdered. That took the whole scope of the riot into a different area, and we dealt with that the best we could. I want to tell a little bit of story. I want to talk about the uniqueness of Lucasville just for a minute. I didn't grow up in Scioto County or down there in the area of Lucasville, but I did grow up in southeastern Ohio. However, when I hear people talk of this and that about Lucasville, and especially about the riot, and they never have set foot in the prison, it frankly pisses me off, pardon my French. I get really angry about that, because if you weren't there, you really don't really know what was going on. And I want to tell a little story about how I tried to adjust being an outsider coming into Lucasville. I'll be really brief. I'd been there about 6 weeks. One of my deputies, who was an old guy in charge of purchasing, came in one morning and he said, "Warden," we had cars back in those days. He said, "Warden, we're going to buy you a new car." And I said, "You are?" I said, "I was driving one of those old Jeep Willie, big, heavy-duty 70s model Jeep. I was running up and down the road in, and it was shimmying and shaking, and he said, "We're going to get you a new car." And I said, "Well, that's wonderful. I need one." And I said, "Look, what can I pick out from?" And he gave me the book, and I said, "Okay." And I said, "What are the colors?" And he said, "Warden, we only buy white cars down here at Lucasville." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, I want a red one." I got a red sedan of some sort, Ford, and it just absolutely shook the timbers down there. And I drove that car for a little over 3 years that I was down there. Thank you. A little over 3 years that I was down there, and I'm sure it was taken out of service the day I left. But you know, we had some. The first week there, you know, I had 3 really serious incidents. 3 guys got their throats cut. 3 separate incidents. At the end of the week, I called Director Wilkinson, and I said, I don't know what I've gotten myself into down here. I said, I really do think I need to lock the prison down. So he allowed me to lock the prison down. We went into a lockdown for some months, tried to sort things out. We had a major consent decree that some of you remember, and those of you who worked down there know about. Very, very difficult. I can remember Arthur Spiegel, the federal judge, calling me over to Cincinnati one day and called me up to the bench and put his finger on my nose and said, "Warden, you will go back and integrate that prison, and you'll do it in 90 days." And so we had a lot of things going on, and we did the best we could. I had a terrific staff down there, terrific staff, and the riot was a seminal event. I looked seminal up, so I know what the definition is. It was a seminal event. Seminal means strongly influencing later development. So I think probably after the riot, everything changed in the department. Many, many things changed from top to bottom. So it was a seminal event. It was a seminal event in my life. I found out when I left there, my blood pressure was skyrocketing. I became a type 2 diabetic. I was falling apart. And I think it was just probably all stress-related stuff. This is a really, really tough business, as we all know. 28 years ago, as Director Chambers Smith said, it was a long time ago. Most people that we hire, you hire today in the department, weren't even born when the riot occurred. That's really pretty incredible when you stop and think about it. I want to just, I know I bounced around, but I want to close by telling a little story. About 10, 12 years ago, when we had our annual memorial services right here at the park, I try to get out to those every year. And after the service, I was walking down the way here toward my car, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder. And I turned around, it was Peggy Vallandigham. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get ripped. And she said, Warden, she said, I just want to know, I've got a few words with you. And I said, yes, ma'am, sure. We sure do that. We went right down behind one of these oak trees right here. And I'm shaking in my boots. I thought she was going to just rip me for some reason or another. And she said, after all these years, I need to let you know that I don't hold you responsible for my husband's death. And it was like somebody had taken 500-pound weight off my shoulders. Most of you know me as a big, tough guy, and I was tough when I had to be. But I have a big heart. And this riot has impacted all of us in many, many ways. And before I close, I want to read the names of Arthur Strauss, Gary Underwood, Mary Poling, Beverly Taylor, and Robert Vallandigham. And I want to say that these names will forever be etched in my heart as a former warden at the Lucasville facility. I want to thank you for attending, and I want to introduce our next speaker. Stephen Canetto. Stephen is the original artist who designed our first memorial here. He designed his first memorial in Israel in 1967, honoring the victims of the Six-Day War. Stephen has designed many memorials for individuals, institutions that celebrate the spirit of life. Stephen has received many awards for his art and public service, including Gold Star Awards from the Ohio Department of Corrections and the Freedom of Arts Award. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Stephen Canetto.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Director, for your kind remarks. Art, for your introduction. I also want to thank Warden Erdis and the department for the ability to re-envision and recreate this memorial. It was a collaborative effort, and the best works, in my experience, are collaborations, especially when they impact the public, and particularly when they have such meaning as this memorial does for us. I've spoken at many unveilings and dedications, but none has ever been more meaningful to me personally than this memorial. It's also the only memorial I've spoken 4 times at. And let's hope lightning doesn't strike it again in 20 years. I'll be 97 and probably too infirm to talk. Can we go forward without looking back? Can we go forward without remembering how we got here? Rededicating this memorial shows us that change is part of life. That first spire, made of fragmented glass laminated together, symbolized that spark of life that we each have within us, that we carry forward even in the face of horrific loss and suffering. When we had a chance to re-envision this memorial, I wanted to really change the dynamic from that fragmented spire to something that, to me, using this very unique dichroic glass, which as you've walked around it, perhaps see its changing colors. For me, it reflects the changes of life, the changes that life brings to each of us throughout the course of the day, throughout the course of our lives, as our emotions rise and fall, as the sun and the day progress, and as the seasons change, the colors in this piece change. Looking forward, this memorial stands as a reminder and as a warning to help us understand how fragile life is, and how that spark of life and those sparks of freedom are fragile. And like the changing colors of the glass, those sparks of life dim and grow. They're precious, and as I said, fragile. And they will endure for as long as we strive to keep them alive. Thank you. My pleasure now to invite Warden Ron Erdis. Good morning. I'd like to start by saying what an incredible honor it is for me to be here, part of this rededication ceremony, as the warden of the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility. This monument is special to the department, and it's particularly significant for those of us that have worked at SOCF. Today, June 9th, is also significant to SOCF. June 9th is the anniversary of when Elside was reopened, just over a year after all the destruction was caused during the 1993 SOCF riot. I'm honored to be here with so many former and current employees, and I'm honored to be here with so many of my fellow wardens. As most of you know, there have been many times throughout the history of its existence that SOCF has faced the worst kinds of adversity. It's been left feeling deflated, mourning staff members that have been injured, even killed in the line of duty. Some of these days have turned into memories that haunt us, images that we cannot erase. But we stick together at SOCF, and we come back better and stronger than before, no matter what obstacles we face. We are bound by our experiences, by our history, and the fact that we handle the most egregious and dangerous inmates, not only in the state of Ohio, but in the entire United States of America. There's a special sense of pride and accomplishment for what we're asked to do. I admire how well this monument captures the essence of SOCF. It is remarkable. It stands here in Memorial Park on the grounds of our training academy, where every new employee that begins a career with the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction can drive by and see it. This memorial helps ensure that the events leading up to, during, and the aftermath following the SOCF riot are remembered. Its presence here in this special place gives employees the opportunity to ask questions and understand the deep-rooted history of the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility. It gives them the opportunity to learn about the unique challenges, the work that's required to manage a facility such as the Southern Ohio Correctional Facility, and the loss that has been endured by every employee that has walked those corridors. There are three very important words imprinted on this monument: spirit, courage, and perseverance. The spirit of all those that have bravely served at SOCF, particularly those during the events of April 1993 and the SOCF riot. Those who we've lost since remain in our hearts and on our minds. Share a conversation with one of the 22 current employees that were employees in 1993 during the SOCF riot. You'll develop an understanding of the courage it took and still takes to walk a block at SOCF. You'll know that through that tragedy, they persevered. Few careers expose individuals to the challenges that people face behind the walls at SOCF. Courage is displayed by our staff every day. They stand tall, they take on every challenge as it comes. They know the dangers, but they do it anyway, because they're conscious of the fact that they're serving a purpose larger than themselves. We recognize the selfless price that individuals have paid to keep the citizens of Ohio safe, and we admire their courage. The Southern Ohio Correctional Facility has borne witness to the most difficult days in our department's history. Staff have gone through life-altering experiences. they've been gravely injured. And again, sadly, some have made the ultimate sacrifice. Despite all that, we continue to persevere, never taking for granted where we came from or where our mission is taking us to. We are stronger, wiser, and more motivated than ever because of the commitment given by those that have come before us. This monument is a true symbol of the spirit, courage, and perseverance of the staff of SOCF. It memorializes those dark days that cannot and should not be forgotten. This monument itself was broken down just a short time ago, yet here it stands, built back stronger and better than before. It's a symbol of our vow to never forget, to never take for granted what has been given by those that have and continue to walk that thin gray line. I look at this monument in two parts. First, the hard concrete wall that memorializes the SOCF riot. And though that wall may be shrouded in darkness, at the top of it sits a spire. And that spire reflects light. And that light, like SOCF, shines through it all. And it ensures that darkness will never prevail. I'd now like to introduce former director. I believe he was the director from 1991 until 2006, Reginald Wilkins.
Thank you, Warden, and good morning to all of you. I'll go out on a limb and say it's a pleasure to be here. And it is a pleasure to see all of you. It's wonderful to see, so many familiar faces, and quite frankly, some unfamiliar ones. And when I hear the story about, some staff not even being born until after the SOCF disturbance, it's pretty amazing. It shocks my conscience just a little bit. But that's the reality. And that reality is that if we don't recall our history, we'll be doomed to repeat it. So we always need to know from whence we've come. And I think this memorial that you see in front of you helps us to do that. It shouldn't take a monument, however, for us to recall part of our history. But certainly, these types of events puts it in perspective. And I think that's extremely important. When we dedicated this monument at a memorial event in 2005, I believe, this was several years after the riot at SOCF. Part of the perspective back then is that it just wasn't supposed to be a monument because of the riot. However, if the riot had not happened, I'm not sure we would have had an SOCF memorial event or a monument. So certainly our take calls it a seminal event. I call it a bellwether event as well. And if you're familiar with, the law, sometimes the, landmark cases are called bellwether cases because they're meant to be predictive. And when we're being predictive about what happened over the course of SOCF's now nearly 50-year history. And I think SOCF will be celebrating the 50th anniversary next year, Warden. Is that correct? Invite me to that if you're going to have an event, because I think it's extremely important. It was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do then, it's the right thing to do now. And regardless of whether lightning strikes, this spire, and by the way, we now have a lightning rod at the top of this one, so, I don't think it'll be damaged. So whoever thought of that, Stephen, you need to be commended. But I think we should, not unlike the memorial ceremony we do every year, have not necessarily a rededication event, but an event that recognizes this every year or every so often, so we do not forget. I met the correction officer of the year from Belmont Correctional Institution. Let's give him a round of applause. I'd like to see young people like him, and he may not consider himself young, but I do, to bring them here, academy classes, whomever it is that we can, bring down to this location with, the Buckeye Grove and the memorial event and the SOCF and the, Ohio State Reformatory. I think it's extremely important that, these are embedded in the consciousness of those persons who will be, carrying out, our policies and practices over the course of their careers. I want to particularly thank Director Annette Chambers-Smith, for endorsing this event. I know this is something we wanted to do last year, but something called COVID got in the way. And we're here now, and that's awesome. And I want to thank her not just for being an inspiration for events such as this and the Buckeye Grove, but for her leadership. I did not. This is the first time I heard the story about you being in the first academy class after the riot, and I think that's an amazing story. And you were absolutely true. It's absolutely a true situation that you're a strong person and you're not weak, and you decided to join the department anyway. Well, we're not only happy that you joined the department, we're happy that you rejoined the department. So let's give our director a round of applause. I want to thank Stephen Canetto. Stephen Canetto is an amazing person, and it's not just events like this that he's known for. I mean, he has artwork in downtown Columbus on the corner of Broad and High, and I think Broad and Front Street, and you can see his artwork in public. And his talent and his dedication to this agency go beyond the monument. I mean, he's actually volunteered in prisons helping inmates to understand art. So, he's been personally engaged with his agency over and beyond just events like this. So, Stephen, I personally appreciate your friendship, I appreciate your talent, and let's give him a round of applause as well. Art Tate and I, he's probably the only person here who was hired in this agency before me, I think. When I first got to the Lebanon Correctional Institution, Art Tate was there. And we worked together for many years. I think a year later, Tony Bergano, what year did you come to Lebanon? 74. In 74. So I was there in 73, and Art, you came there when? In 69. So, I talk about folks like Tony and Steve and Art and others, as colleagues, but they're friends, quite frankly. These are people that we grew up together with. We know stories about their kids and families, and their proclivities. You know, Art told a story about when he left, you know, SOCF at the end of 1993. People think that he was being punished, you know, to leave SOCF. But we saw something maybe that even Art didn't see in himself at that time, that, you know, it was a tough thing. And I know he did not want to leave, you know, SOCF, and he would never admit that, but he needed to, you know, and we suggested, you know, that a change would be good for him personally. I personally, and I'm glad he's still around. He's still in the business. He is still helping out. He is a person, like he said, he can be strong when he wants, but I know of no other person that's got a bigger heart than Arthur Tate Jr. Let's give him a round of applause. So I too want to pay tribute, you know, to, you know, those persons who made the ultimate sacrifice. And that's, you know, Officer Robert Bobby Vallandingham, Miss Beverly Joe Taylor, Mr. Eric Bowling, Officer Gary Underwood, and Officer Arthur Sprouse. But I also want to pay tribute to their families. No one will miss them more than they will. You know, I think it's extremely important that when we talk about staff, especially those whose watch is ended as a result of their official responsibility with this agency, that, you know, they leave behind families, they leave behind spouses, children, relatives, and people who are really close friends. So they're not just a name on a program. They're not a statistic. You know, they are real people, and they still have real people who are their relatives. And I want to pay tribute to them because, you know, in this business, you know, we have our families, you know, sacrifice as much as we do, who walk inside the doors and the gates of our correctional institutions, and for those parole and probation officers who are out there helping to facilitate public safety every day. So it's extremely important that that we look at the big picture, and I think we do, but I just want to say it again out loud. You know we chose this profession to keep our community safe. It does not make it any easier, however, when the person's watch ends prematurely. So, for me, you know, this is a big deal. I want to thank, if you walk down the corridor here to the vanishing point to the spire, you'll see all the bricks. Take a moment, you know, sometime to just see all the persons who, you know, made a contribution to see that this happened. It's my understanding that we use no public dollars in doing any of this. Certainly we use staff time, inmate work, and, you know, a lot of and a lot of talent, you know, to pull this off. But that's what we do. You know, we're a talented agency, and I don't mind still saying we, even though I don't get a paycheck from the state of Ohio anymore. But it's a talented agency, and we have resources like you wouldn't believe, and today is just one good example of that. So, thank all of you for what you do. For those of you who are here, kind of brave the weather a little bit. It's not that bad, but I agree with the director that it is appropriate for this occasion. You know, sunshine isn't bad, but I think the day is totally appropriate for this event, as well as for those persons who are not here today. But they're back doing, you know, the work of this agency and working for the taxpayers of the state of Ohio. So I hope I had the opportunity to say hello to some of you. If I haven't, you know, stop me, and I'd love to shake your hand. I am vaccinated, you know, so So thank you for what you do, and hopefully I'll see you soon.
The words on the memorial read, dedicated to the spirit, courage, and perseverance of those whose sacrifices will not be forgotten. Let us pray. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance on you and give you peace. Amen.
Honor guard. Attend. Put.
Half left. Face.
Reset. On.
On. Half right. Face. Ready. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Ready. Front. Present. On.
Order. On.
Detail. Order. On.
We'd like to thank everyone for attending today. Please be safe in your travels. Be safe in the work we do. God bless our fallen, and God bless all of you.
Honor guard.